told we're live. I don't believe it, but I'm told we're live. Welcome to Healthcare Triage Live, as I clear all the stuff that I'm looking at right now to make sure I don't get distracted. Yes, welcome. So, thank you for joining us as always. As people start to trickle in, we'll just do some of our housekeeping. I'm going to scroll up so that I don't screw any of that up. There's going to be a list of it somewhere here. And of course, there's Facebook, facebook.com/healthcaretriage. Like us, follow it there. Twitter at HC Triage. There's our Reddit, reddit.com/r/HC Triage. I get on there every once in a while, answer questions as well. So that's also good. Check out our merch at hctmerch.com. Right, Mark? That's right, hctmerch.com. And of course, patreon.com/healthcaretriage. I was just remarking to Stan before we went on live that, the number keeps going up. I'm amazed and touched and humbled, and it's great. And we're so thrilled that many of you feel good about supporting the show. And we have plans. We got a new series coming up that we'll be excited to announce at some point in the future. Lots of work to do, but everything is great. Let us launch into your questions. We're going to start with two clarifications from last week because I dropped the ball twice, it appears. One worse than others. So one of the questions from last week was about donating plasma, and I made the mistake of saying that I thought that basically they took the blood out and then separated it and then kept the red blood cells. Because somebody was asking about that. But it turns out, as people pointed out to me at redcrossblog.org/donating-blood/types-donation/plasma, they talk about the fact that they actually return the blood right to you, the blood cells. Great. So I don't know if it would. So it's not as if they take all the blood out and then separate it later in the day. They actually do it live, and they return the red cells to people. So that would change, I think, requirements for how often people can donate. As always, talk to your healthcare professional. They would likely be smarter about this than I was. The second thing that we should do is we tried, and I'm rubbing my eyes because this is the second time I tried to get this right. We had a question of birth control pills, where people first asked about skipping the placebos, and I assumed they were just skipping the placebos and waiting a week and missing the enriching iron that might be within them. Then it was pointed out to me that people were not talking about that. They were talking about skipping the placebo and launching right into the next cycle. And I said, well, that doesn't seem like a good idea. Because, you want to have the placebo. That's when people menstruate and everything else, and that's how they're supposed to be used. And I said, there you go. And immediately afterwards, Rachel Hoffman said I was wrong, and she, of course, is right. And lots of you also pointed out the fact that for various reasons, wanting to control your cycle, go on vacation, do stuff that women often do, actually immediately continue the next cycle and rotate. And evidently this is okay. So I'm going to say what I should have said the first time. Ask your doctor. I'm a pediatrician. I don't prescribe the pill that often. I'm going to own that. And I'm also a man, and I don't take the pill that often. And there you go. And obviously I have not been paying close enough attention to all the ways the pill that can be used because I was just following the instructions on the box and the way that you write the prescription. And evidently, there's off-label use I was not totally aware of. So, in retrospect, we learned that I should not be doing this. Rachel is actually going to work up a script entirely on this topic, on birth control pills, so that I and you can finally learn and get it totally correct. And that should be our practice in the future. So, that's all of our old news. Let's get to new questions. Jonathan van der Wingengart. I'm going to Canada for 6 months for a working holiday from Australia. Is there anything I should be checking with my doctor before I leave? Thanks for the show. DFTBA, male 19. I appreciate the male 19 because otherwise how would I know what sex you are and how old you are? First of all, how awesome for you that you get to go to Canada for 6 months on a working holiday at 19. No, Mark is shaking his head no. I was just thinking like, you're getting to travel the world. That's like the opposite side of the world. Most 19-year-olds probably don't get that kind of working holiday. Yeah, you should always check with your physician because there are sometimes immunizations or shots or things that you might want to take before you go. I'm going to guess that from Australia to Canada, you probably have pretty similar immunizations. There's probably no crazy, I shouldn't say crazy, but rare endemic diseases that you'd be worried about in one versus the other. But these things are look-upable. I know the CDC does a good job of telling like people in the United States what immunizations or medical things that they would need to travel abroad for almost every country. I imagine Australia has something similar. I imagine that the WHO might have something. And you can also, as always, check with your doctor, because nothing I say should ever be construed as medical advice. You should always talk to a healthcare professional before doing anything for yourself or to yourself or your child or anything like that. But there are resources that you can check online from places you can trust, although I'm going to guess it should be pretty easy for you. Casey Cameron asks, any research done on the nosefrida? I'm worried that even though there's a filter, I can still get sick. So we put this question up minutes before the show started, and it gave me just enough time to go look at the nosefrida and enough time to become absolutely horrified. What are you doing? Like, this device, for people that don't know, is like, it's like a little probe attached to a tube, attached to like a mouthpiece that you might see like on a cigarette filter, so that you can suck the snot out of your baby's nose. Then there's a filter or some kind of sponge inside, so that by mistake the snot does not shoot directly into your mouth and you drink it. I'm with you. Even though there's a filter, there's no way that I would. I mean, why not just put your mouth right on the baby's nostril and suck that? I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? First of all, I think in general people are way too obsessed with trying to get everything out of their babies' noses. For a long time, animals have existed quite well without worrying about the fact that they can't suck the snot out of their noses. And it's not like baby animals are littering, our woods or anywhere else, dying in infancy of snot. And it's not as if there's a scourge in children everywhere else in the country that they're dying of suffocation because, one of their or both their nostrils get sucked up. We're way too concerned about this. I buy that a snot infested baby is not a happy baby and that it interferes with their sleep and everything else. But man, no, there's no research done on the nosefrida. No, I'm not even sure what you'd want to do. Like, I guess you're worried about it. You're getting sick. I'm worried that you're using this at all. I don't get it. What even bothered me more is I went to Amazon to look this up. I should say we looked it up, and it had like almost 5,000 product reviews. Really? I'm amazed. It's, wow. Yeah. No research done. None. Sir Edward Fotherington, is it safe to similarly regularly 1 to 2 times per week train so hard that it causes you to vomit? I ask because I'm training for an IronMan next year, and this does happen from time to time. Well, my initial reaction is like, if your body is vomiting, it's pretty much the best way for it to tell you it doesn't like what you're doing. So, that's the body's way of saying stop. But I think you're asking me, like, is it really mean that you're going to have a serious issue, and should you stop training for the Ironman? So I'll give you my answer about Aaron Carroll, which absolutely will not apply to you. And I realize I'm still wearing my microphone from before, which I'm taking it off right now. Aaron Carroll does not think that we should be doing any kind of exercise that causes us to vomit. It just doesn't seem to make much sense. I told you guys, like, I did P90X back in the day, and so the first time I did P90X, the first week I was so sore that when I was sleeping, if in my sleep I would turn my arms from like supination to pronation, the pain would wake me out of sleep. And if I fell back asleep like this and I turned my arms over my sleep, the pain again would wake me out of sleep. That was my body's way of saying, this is not necessary. And I finished the 90-some days, and I had what I would consider results, and then I went back to regular life, and those results pretty much went away. Later, I tried Insanity, which is an entirely other product, and the name alone should have warned me that this was not a good idea. But it involved like these 30-minute aerobic sessions. And what was awesome about Insanity, if you watch P90X, like every once in a while, there'll be like a 40-year-old working in the front, doing the exercises. And you go, yeah, even 40-year-olds can do this. Awesome. They look great. Insanity looked like it was entirely made up of 23-year-old aerobics instructors. And periodically, one of them would have to tap out or would like pass out on the side. Looked like they were almost vomiting like you. And I thought that I could still do this, and I was mistaken. Probably been week 4, people at work started asking me if I was ill. Somebody actually asked me if I had cancer. That's how bad I looked. It was not for me, and I stopped. That was my body's way of saying, this is literally insanity. So do you need to do an Ironman? Probably not. To get the benefits of exercise, if you go watch our video, it's like, 30 minutes a day of moderate aerobic activity for 5 days a week, not Ironman. The fact that you're training that hard and you're forcing yourself to vomit, I mean, I understand the allure. It's fine. I don't get it personally. That doesn't mean that other people shouldn't do it. People don't get things that I like, and that's totally fine. But again, back to your question, you're probably asking me, like, is this a reason to concern or stop? If you really, really, really want to do this, you're probably going to be fine. If this continues at length, talk to your doctor. Maybe it's just not for you. But if you are vomiting once in a while, I don't think it's going to cause you any type of lung trouble. Now, if you vomit regularly, you're going to start causing damage to your throat. You're going to start causing damage to your teeth. A lot of the other issues that happen, you don't want that. But, again, in general, I would just be like, as your friend, not your doctor, I'd be like, why? What are you doing? There you go. Now I probably alienated the entire healthcare triage viewing audience that wants to run Ironmans or marathons and stuff like that. I just don't get it. Aldrich Van Claveren, do you think that the DSM-5 has done autists? That was your word. Any favors? I found that it only makes people think that autism isn't real. So we don't have a controlled study for this, obviously. I don't think people don't think autism is real. I don't think people think autism isn't real. I do believe that there are a lot of people that think we have expanded the definition of, autism spectrum disorder wider, more encompassing, so that people perhaps who are more high functioning or have less impact from their condition are also classified in the same group. Certainly more people being diagnosed today in general seem to be less impacted by the actual syndrome or disorder than people were in the past, meaning maybe, people with more Asperger's type symptoms and less autism type symptoms. But that doesn't mean people don't think autism isn't real. Autism is absolutely, my God. There's a ton. I've written about autism and screening and everything else in the New York Times. I've had research funded to help screen, to improve the ways that we screen for autism. I don't think the DSM-5 has hurt autism or has made people think it's not real. I do think it's a more expansive definition. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, as long as we're all cognizant of what changes get made and why. I also think, to be very honest with you, the average person has no idea what a DSM is. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It was an attempt years ago to try to make the diagnosis of many mental health disorders more concrete, because you can't just be like, I know it when I see it. We have to have definitions that everybody agrees on so we can start to do epidemiology and studies and decide when people should be on medication. So it was an attempt to make it more rigorous. And whether or not it's worked is debatable, but that's what the DSM-5, it's the 5th revision of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. I think most people probably have no idea what that is. Midnight SG asks, a study is going around the breastfeeding community claiming it is better for the mother to take a massive dose of vitamin D rather than the baby. I'm curious if you saw the study. I have not. You should send it to me. I will look at it. And if it's great, I would even do it on a Healthcare Triage News. Having not heard about this, well, it depends. I don't know. Where did you see the study? Type it in now. Let us know. I want to know where the study was, because I could look at it even quickly. But I guess the theory here is that if the mom takes a massive dose of vitamin D, that it will filter through her breast milk into the baby, and therefore the baby will get more vitamin D, and therefore you want it to do supplementation. I have no idea if that is true or not. I would imagine that could be a study. So, and you say it's done. Let us look at it. Send it in. I will move on, and hopefully you're listening. Vrulg, what do you think of a recent study published in the International Journal of Epidemiology that found no relationship between sitting and mortality rates? So, I'd have to look at this one. I do remember seeing it in the news. Oh, you haven't. Look at this. You even put this up here. So I'm going to quickly search while we do this. I do remember seeing this in the news. I have to be honest, as I said before, I have not looked at the exact study yet. As I would say with all studies, you should Add this to the prior fund of knowledge. We should be Bayesian in our analysis. No one study that should ever come out should totally refute everything that's done before. We had a pre-test probability of what existed before. We should do a post-test probability after. You guys are going to see my process right now. This is associations of sitting behaviors with all-cause mortality over a 16-year follow-up, the Whitehall 2 study. This was a cohort study, more men than women, of people who were free from cardiovascular disease. So these are healthy people. They were calculated how much time they sat doing various things, and then followed starting in 1997 and 99, Cox proportional hazard models, which means they were looking at how long until something happens. It's called survival analysis, to look at prospective associations between sitting time and mortality risk. Now, here's the problem. I'm unfortunately not in my office. Oh, no, the HTML, the full text is free. We can zip right over to that. I was going to say I couldn't look at the whole paper. They had 81,000 person years of follow-up with 450 deaths. No associations between any of the 5 sitting indicators and mortality risk. I'm still waiting for this to load. Either in unadjusted models or models adjusted. Well, first of all, I would never buy the unadjusted models. You have to do adjusted models. So that's the first. The second is that I'd be concerned about, death is a pretty big outcome. You need usually a lot to look at, and with only 450 deaths, I'm not sure how it is. I would also say again that you have to add this in. This is unfortunately loading shockingly slowly. The EcoGeek Wi-Fi is not what we would like it to be all the time, so I'm going to have to move on. But regardless, my answer is basically generally the same. I would add this and to what has been seen before. I don't think this would negate what we have seen before and take it all away. You have to put things in context. But I will look at that either later or later in the show, and we will see where it goes. I'm just checking the time. Next question, Ben Wiener. I've recently become an adult. Congratulations. How should I find a primary care physician? My parents see a guy I don't connect with particularly well. Word of mouth is always your best bet. Talk to your friends. See who they like. Do you know any doctors? Talk to doctors. See who they recommend. That's what I always do. Most of the people I know ask me, what doctors do I recommend? And to be honest with you, I often recommend friends because, so much of a doctor is a personal connection and relationship. I also recommend people based on what they're looking for. My doctor is very business oriented, she's very right to the point, but I think she's very well read, and that's what I want. Other people want a handholder. They want someone who's going to become their best friend and ask about their kids and what they're doing on vacation and stuff like that. That's more like my dentist. I don't want that in a doctor. I want to get in and out. So you should ask you should ask your friends, or you should ask people what people's bedside manners and stuff like that. I'm going to try to move a little faster through some of these. Jesper Lauman asks, what is love? 55. Next question. Eric Heudelsvik. Is Crohn's disease hereditary? Crohn's disease is an inflammatory bowel disorder, much like ulcerative colitis, which I have. My brother actually has Crohn's disease. It's not hereditary, I think, in the sense that we can map it to a certain gene and say if it's recessive, it's this or that. But it does run in families. So clearly there's a familial component. It has something to do with our DNA. And so in that sense, it is hereditary, but it is not Mendelian in a way that I think people can classify one way or the other. Joanne Duffy, could you discuss the low FODMAP diet in relation to controlling IBS symptoms? I'm going to save time and say you should go watch our episode on gluten, because I talk a little bit about the FODMAP diet there, but I will say this is one of those where I don't feel like there's a lot of really good evidence. It works for some people or not, whether it's placebo or the actual diet, we just don't know. If it's placebo and it's working for you, more power to you, but it's not something that I would go and recommend out to everybody because it's pretty hard to follow, and I don't think there's a lot of conclusive evidence that what people are seeing is much more than a placebo effect. Thin in a Dream. What should I think about if I want to go vegan? Well, the first thing, I was going to make a joke and then I stopped myself because that was bad. Anyway, make sure that you're eating a well-balanced diet. Make sure that you're getting all the vitamins and minerals and protein that you need. Talk to people who are vegan. Get lots of advice from them. If you want, talk to your doctor. That's it in a nutshell. Evil Doctor. Has there been any research done on what kinds of foods or diet can help or hurt inflammatory issues like arthritis? I was just at this place at the Keystone Mall for lunch, and my God, on the wall, they had like every food you can imagine and all the amazing miracle properties. And I just wanted to like go crazy and tell them it was all wrong. And then, you know, my wife told me I should be a better human being, and we just went and got a burger instead. Anyway, I don't know of any good evidence that says these kinds of things. Lots of promotions, lots of things you'll see in advertisements, but I'd let that go. Next. From Twitter, First Frymaster, how is ICD-10 going to affect healthcare decisions? I don't know. I mean, my God, we could do a whole episode on ICD. It's the International Classification something system, but it's the way that we code for what people have. ICD-10 has gotten so specific that I'm on a Twitter, actually stands on the same one, not Twitter, texting, where my friends like to constantly find the craziest ones, and there's things like a follow-up visit from a previous injury caused by being sucked into a jet engine. I think that's my personal favorite. But then, of course, it's like, what's it, an injury of the leg? I mean, who needs to code that specifically? That's crazy. But people are very upset, the doctors, because it's very hard to do. Other people just don't care. I don't know how it's going to affect healthcare decisions. It's still a work in progress. Lynn Skysong, my doctor did blood tests for food allergies and said I'm mildly allergic to wheat and sesame seed. However, I read that a positive is only rate 55% of their times. Are there better ways to test this? Not really. This is all sort of making it up as we go along. This is a great time to go watch our episode on blood tests and remember that tests are not yes or no. We find a cut value and then we say there's a certain sensitivity and specificity. So even you're right, if we say you're positive, that only has a certain positive predictive or negative predictive value and doesn't mean it's guaranteed. And it's very correct that a lot of the tests we do, especially with allergies, we're like, well, we think this is it, but we just don't know. And so probably not. But you could still talk to your doctor, especially if they're an allergist, and ask them. Renee Fuchs, and I'm going to finish up and be done. Renee Fuchs, are there any reliable ways to treat migraines other than the medications that control your blood vessel dilation? I have horrible side effects, and my doctor keeps saying that it's my only option. You should talk to your doctor, but there are other things to try. There are some antihistamines that people try prophylactically. There are some other drugs that you might be able to try, prophylactically as well. So yes, talk to your doctor. If you're not happy with that, talk to a neurologist. I have sent friends' kids to neurologists for migraines, and there are new things all the time. So you should go talk to a doctor. And I think that will do it. I'm looking at my clock. Yes, thank you. Good. And I see now Stan was actually excited for number 9, What is Love? And I'm seeing now that, because I only see the comments at the end. All right, here we go. Facebook.com/healthcaretriage. Twitter @HCTtriage. The reddit.com/r/HCTtriage. And of course, HCTmerch.com. And of course, Patreon.com/healthcaretriage. Watch Friday. Everyone who wondered what I think about the WHO new thing that says bacon and meat are going to kill you. Watch Friday's Healthcare Triage News. I answer it then. Monday's episode, I can't remember what it is, but it'll be great. We will not be here live next week. I have to go to a meeting in Seattle for the Robert Wood Johnson Clinical Scholars Program, which I'm pretty excited about. And that will do it. Thanks as always for watching. We'll see you 2 weeks from now.